turn it on? Okay, thank you. Um, Again, welcome. And I would like to remind everybody to silence your cell phones and electronic devices. If anyone wants to address the board, fill out a public comment form and present to our executive assistant. And I guess that's all I need to talk about here. Trustees, remember to have your microphones turned on. All right. So at this point, I'm going to have the flag salute. So would everybody please stand? Salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, do we have a report from closed session?
There is nothing to report.
Okay. We need a motion to approve the agenda for this evening.
I so move.
Is there a second?
I second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Right. This evening, we do not have a student advisor present, nor is there employee organizations represented. So I guess the superintendent will talk to us about leadership. Or are you going to do that at the end?
I can do it now. I'll do my report with leadership, unless you want me to wait till
No, go
superintendent's
ahead.
report.
That's fine.
Oak Manor was supposed to present tonight, and all I can report is it has been a really busy week, a heartbreaking week, and I've told all the administrators to stay home tonight. So anyway, she's not here tonight. We were going to be doing our data collaboratives starting this week, and so they've all been postponed. So there's really not much to report there. I will just talk to you a little bit about what we've been doing this week to try and help families. And my heart certainly goes out to our entire community. I know we all know people or are personally affected by the fires that are happening both in our area and in other parts of Northern California. Our sites have been working really hard to try and identify staff members who have either lost their homes or they're displaced, or students who have lost their homes as well. And so we are prepared for them when they come back to school. We are hopefully going to reopen on Monday, depending on what happens over the weekend with the fire. It's really likely that we'll open all schools. We're still trying to see what's going to happen with Eagle Peak. It's currently evacuated. That area is still evacuated. So we've been planning diligently to make sure that we're ready for our kids to come back to school, that we have the appropriate staffing levels for them to come back to school, and then we have the right level of support for them to come back to school. My heart is warmed by the number of community members and neighboring districts who have reached out to us to offer support. Willits Unified and Fort Bragg Unified will be sending counselors to help. We've also had providers in the community, counseling providers in the community offer to help as well. They'll be adding to our existing counseling staff on Monday, and we're meeting with all of the school site staffs tomorrow to make sure that they have time to process and then that they are ready to go with tools to use with kids on Monday. Our goal is to get kids back to school as soon as we can, because getting kids back to at least normalcy at school is really great for them, and then we are better able to assess what their needs might be, both from a counseling perspective and then obviously those who have been displaced, what they might need in terms of clothing and toiletries and everything else. So it's been a difficult week, but we are a super strong community, and I think that every time we have a tragedy like this, we come together well in the community, everyone, and I'm really grateful for the team that we have, Katie, Penny, Deb, Irene, Jason, our Nicole, who's not here right now, and all of our school site administrators, family community liaisons. Those positions that we've added in the last few years, I think they're extremely effective, and I think they're even more effective now that we're in the time of a crisis. We have 22 counselors and school psychologists in our district, so our ability to deal with something like this is much better than it used to be. So I'm grateful to all of the people who are going to do some really hard work next week. And we're here, we're televising, so I want to say to any community members who are watching, we're here to support you, and we're here to support your kids. And, we'll do whatever it takes to make sure that they're grounded in school and as we process through things, ready to learn again. Jason has ordered additional Chromebooks because we know that kids have likely, who've lost their homes, have also lost their technology. So we are geared up and ready to welcome kids back to school, and we want to do it as soon as we possibly can. So I'm grateful to CAL FIRE, to our emergency responders, to the sheriff for being in close contact with me on school closure decisions, and it is our intention to get our kids back to school. But my heart really breaks for all of our families, and we've lost some Ukiah Unified family as well, and it's really heartbreaking. So anyway, that's all I have to say tonight. We are totally focused on this, and we are ready to get our kids back and in school.
Thank you, Superintendent Kubin. And I would just like to say that personally, I am so thankful for our staff and for what a difficult week this has been, and for all your work to make it flow as smoothly as possible during this tragedy. And I would also like to send my condolences out to the community. It's just hard to fathom all that's happened in this last week. At this point, I'm going to read the donations for this month. We have a donation of $180 to the Gardens and School Beautification from Santa Rosa Iris Society, and another donation from eScript to Oak Manor School, and that's $366, so a total of $546.97. Do we have a motion to accept these donations? So moved. Second?
I'll second it.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you very much. Oh, and Superintendent Kubin has one more thing.
Our student board rep sent an email, I just read it, and there is a report in it, so I'll go ahead and read this.
Okay.
She wanted to let everyone know that homecoming is tentatively moved to the week of October 29th through November 3rd. And then there's no word yet on any fundraising for fire victims in Mendocino Lake and Sonoma counties, but she's sure once school starts back up, they'll get to work. And she knows that at Ukiah High School, there will be grief counselors and sessions available to students throughout the day once school is in session. And I did want to add, I was at the high school today. This is just a positive story. Our kids are amazing. And I exited the sheriff's press conference, and out in front of the school were probably 15 to 20 of our high school students who had received a donation of about 100 cases of water. They were all unloading it from a truck. There were parents and family members out there grilling. They had tamales and sausages and pozole, and they were there ready to feed people. And the student who organized all of this is a senior at Ukiah High School. He did it on his own. He started with 8 bottles of water and a table, and he now has this movement of all these wonderful kids reaching out to help people in the community.
Thank you so much for that.
Alexis is reporting, and I haven't heard a confirmation on this yet, B, but we'll get it out to you. I texted the high school today to find out the accurate information. She's reporting she thinks it's moved to the week of October 29th to November 3rd.
That is also what I heard.
Okay.
That the 3rd then is the actual homecoming. Okay, next we have on the agenda the first reading of the revised board policy and administrative regulations on intra-district open enrollment. Do we have any questions or comments about that revised board policy? Yes, trustee Montpere?
I guess I understand the difficulty that those students experience. I also feel that when parents enroll their children in a school, that they know that that's a possibility. I guess I have serious concern about denying admittance to a student who's from that district. And I don't know how, from that area, I don't know how often this happens. We were going to get some information, but I understand that it's, not been a good week for gathering information. But I would just want to be sure that if we're going to go down this road, that we're going to be very, very careful about how we calculate leaving space for those students who might come in, because it happens it used to happen very, very frequently. And I don't know if the principals or secretaries have been able to give us any sense of whether or not that still happens. And there have been some practices in this community at certain schools that didn't always lend itself to leaving enough room for students who came in at the last minute. So I have some concerns about making another child from a community go to a different school because we've given preference to a student who had enrolled the year before. It's just my concern. Having had to drive children 2.5 hours to home from a birthday party because my daughter was not in her district school, it just creates problems for the students. Their friends are no longer from their school. They're from a different school, and I don't know. That's just my comment, my thought.
And just a slight bit of background, our board policy currently states that a student from outside of the attendance area, not outside of our district, but outside of that attendance area, who chooses to attend a school in a different attendance area, that they can, even though they've attended that school for 2 years, 3 years, if a new student comes in, moves to that area, we are supposed to send them back to their home school. And we had to do that this year, and last spring we had to do that. It is incredibly hard on little kids and their families, and so I'm in favor of not doing that anymore. I understand the ramifications of that, and we do leave space at our elementary school, at our schools, for last minute enrollment. But when you've had a student who's been at a school for, in some cases, 2 or 3 years, and we're sending them away from that school where they have established their friends and they've become grounded in that school, I feel moving them out is not the best thing. So that's why we have this before the board, because we have implemented our policy this year, and it has been really difficult for kids, elementary kids.
Can I, do we know how, maybe we know this. how many children are not in there? It's a lot, right? It's a lot of children that are not in
Yeah,
there.
it was in
sanitary.
Dixon's report.
That's-
I
is that
don't
the green
remember
dots and the blue
exactly.
dots?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm comfortable with this policy. I talked to one of those parents this year that had to, their child had been in one school in kindergarten or first grade and then had to move to a totally different school. It was really, really disruptive and difficult for that family. And I was uncomfortable with it too. It just didn't seem right. But I do agree with Gail that if we can have less wildness in attendance, it would be better for us, less lawlessness. So maybe if we're doing this policy, we need to also really commit to being really careful about allowing kids outside of their attendance area, unless we have a lot around, kind of thing.
You mean to begin with, allowing them to,
Right.
which at this point, we have a total open enrollment
We do.
It's all
policy.
crazy, right?
Yeah.
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 We do have a complete open enrollment
But
policy.
how often does this happen?
Yeah.
I mean, this isn't, this,
We moved maybe, I'm gonna guess right now, I think about 15 kids this year.
That had been attending a school.
Between the spring and the fall, about 15 kids.
Did we move some kids halfway through the year?
No, we notified them in the spring though, because we
Oh.
knew for certain there was not going to be room. We did write into this policy though, if a student is having attendance problems, they're tardy all the time, they're missing a lot of school, that could be a reason for revoking their transfer,
Right.
which makes a lot of sense to me. Because if you can't get to your school on time that's outside of your neighborhood, maybe being in your school in your neighborhood, you'll get to be able to get there on time.
Trustee Arkin?
Gail, I appreciate your concern. My feeling would be that I would prefer not to move a child that has been there from the very beginning, as opposed, instead of bumping them to bring in a child that came in a few weeks later who is new, because it'll be easier for them to go to a new school, otherwise they're gonna have a hard time anyway, regardless, maybe, going into a new school. Here, you're gonna just have maybe 2 disruptions. And, that child can come back if the parent, wants to have them there the following year. Parents can adjust, and if they know, and the child doesn't know, you're gonna go to this Calpella school, Ukiah school, they don't really know. And it's up to the parent to understand that they need to put their child in a certain spot if they're there already. But if they come in after a while, as long as they understand, and here's the policy, that child, if there's room, that child will be there, otherwise we have another school for them. That's different than yanking somebody who has been there for a little while. That to me is more disruptive than the other way around.
Thank you, Bee. Trustee Nelson?
I think I'm gonna pass.
Okay. Megan, did you have something else?
I did have a question on how does this interact with the sibling policy? So if we have an out-of-attendance child that, let's say, starts in kindergarten, does their sibling also automatically get enrolled? Or is it like each child themselves? I know you've answered this before, I just can't remember.
They would have preference.
Preference over, not over a local child, or preference, over an in-district child?
They would have preference, and I
In
can't, I don't have, let me pull up the policy,
Yeah,
sorry.
it does say
It
that
does
in
say
the
it in the
policy. It
policy.
addresses it.
Let me just pull it up real quick, because I don't have it
I
off
know
the
it
top of
does.
my head.
Is it in the board policy or the administrative?
That's what I'm looking right now. I pulled up I think it's in the administrative reg. Enrollment priorities. Number 4, under enrollment priorities, in the interest of keeping families together, the district believes that siblings should be allowed to attend the same school. This is regarding a lottery process, though. The lottery process that occurs in May of each year will be drawn for an entire family. So it does give preference to a sibling.
No, I guess I'm not understanding it.
well, that's because it's not related to this.
Well,
No,
I
it
mean,
is.
But that isn't. That's the lottery, and you're not talking about the lottery.
Right.
You're talking about if
Right.
a kid was here from out of that area for first and second grade, and then their sibling's gonna come, does their sibling get preference over somebody who lives in the neighborhood?
that's exactly what
And
I'm
that's not what that's addressing.
Okay.
Right, that's about the lottery, sorry, I just,
So it's not addressed, I thought,
It was mentioned
I
somewhere.
read that too.
okay, the superintendent or designation grant priority, hold on. Okay, here, in the board policy, it says the superintendent or designee shall grant priority to any district student to attend another district school, including a charter school outside of his or her attendance area as follows, and it lists several things. And number 5 is any sibling of a student already in attendance at that school.
But does it bump somebody in that neighborhood?
That's what I'm
That's what
wondering.
it's saying it does.
It could, yes. Because the goal is to keep families together.
Right. It makes, I mean, I'm comfortable with this policy, because I think removing a kid from a school where they've established, like, a life is difficult, but it just again points to the complication of having a lawless open enrollment district, is you let in a child in kindergarten, and then they have 5 more siblings. I mean, that's a long path of
Right.
filling up that school with children from outside the district. But I don't want to discriminate against large families either, so, you know.
It isn't an easy policy
not.
to
No,
deal
yeah,
with, it
it's
just
not.
isn't.
It's very
And-
complicated.
And it's just gonna be disruptive to someone, no matter how you do it.
Right.
And we could revise it again.
We could.
Trustee Nielsen?
So why don't we just have the kids go to whatever school they want? Is there a reason why we're having to move these kids? Perhaps that we're out of room?
Yes,
So our schools are starting to run out of room?
yes.
Okay, I was just curious, I couldn't figure that out for a second. And I'm not sure that I actually agree with this policy. I think that kids are resilient. And as with many of the decisions that I've made on this board, I can only pull from my own personal experience. Kids can move from one school to another and be okay. I'm a little weird, but it worked in 5th grade. I think kids can do it. And I think that it's important while we're safeguarding the feelings of students that are traveling from outside of their school area to the inside. We don't want to move those kids that have been there for several years. I think if I were a parent that had to send my kid from, say, Frank Zeke area out to Calpella on a bus, I would be extremely cranky with the district. And so I think that it's a really wonderful idea that we're allowed to pick whatever school we want to go to. But I still feel that, and while it's uncomfortable to have to deal with a family that has to move a child, I do think the priority should go to the person that's living near that school. So my question is, if I'm in disagreement with this proposed first reading, which we've never had this process, we've had this process before, but I don't think we've ever talked about changing language that is proposed. What's the process? What do we do?
Well, if you have any proposed language changes, you would bring them up, and we could add them. But before you do that, and Carolyn, I don't know how you want to run this, but I would suggest that we kind of take a straw poll of the board if they agree with that, the concept that's being proposed in here. If not, then we should take some language changes.
Yes, we need to decide before we bring it back next meeting. I'm going to let these two people speak first, and then we'll.
I agree, Tyler, that it's disruptive to have to not go to your neighborhood school, but I think on the continuum of disruption, it's going to upset parents even more if you pluck your 3rd grader out of a school where they've been going for their 4th year and say, you you have to now go, somewhere else because a new family moved into the neighborhood. So to me, it's not a win-win situation any way you look at it. There's going to be people who are upset, but in my opinion, it's less disruptive for a new student who has yet to make relationships with any students, other peers, to change to a different school so that they can start fresh rather than somebody who may have a couple years of relationships and then sort of uproot them, in my opinion. So I would be in favor of this change.
Can I, just to kind of ask, may I rebuttal? So the question I have is because of course I wasn't directly dealing with the parents and the students, and I don't know what the locations were, but this year we moved 15 or so children. If we had this policy in place as it stands now, what would the transportation issues have, what are the transportation issues for, if we use these 15 kids, what would that look like? Would we run another bus? Would we have a van that would pick these kids up? How would that have worked?
We took care of that.
It definitely can have transportation fallout. Without having Nicole here, because Nicole does all of that, I couldn't give you specifics, but definitely when a school is full and we involuntarily transfer them to another school,
Yeah.
we transport them.
But the
If they are
voluntaries, we don't.
voluntarily transferred, we do not transport them. But
Okay,
if the school is full and we have to send a student to a school outside of his or her attendance area, the district provides transportation. And we're doing that all over the district this
so the kid,
because we're full.
let's just take, for example, Frank's Zeke, because I know that it's bursting at its seams. A family moves with 2 children to Frank's Zeke, and with this new policy, they're not allowed to go to Frank's Zeke. What is one example of where we'd send them and how they would get there?
So wherever there was openings, and this year we've had like 2 openings in first grade somewhere and 1 opening, it's really tight this year. So they might be sent to Oak Manor, and we would transport them to Oak Manor.
And so to
You
really,
need to speak into your mic.
Thanks, Jason.
so if the family had a 3rd grader and a 1st grader, which is not unusual, potentially one could be going to Nokomis and one could be going to Oak Manor.
That rarely happens. We want to keep families together.
And I'm sorry, and then we would transfer them, are there buses that do that?
Yes.
Go from Frank's Zeke to?
Yep.
Okay, Gail, you had something you wanted to add?
Yeah, just a couple more ideas. I just think that example you brought up is, so here, we were concerned about 2 children being upset, but meanwhile, we have transferred 12 children away from their neighborhood school to a totally different school. And I guess I'm a real neighborhood school fan, and that I believe, having taught so long and watching how close parents get, because their activities extend beyond just the school. They're on the same soccer team, they're on the same this and that. I just think you really break up that thing. And, if you want to go to a parent meeting now, you can't go to Calpella, you have to drive all the way into town. Just a thought. Secondly, I think that the deadline is early, because most families make their move over the summer. I would feel more comfortable with this policy if we didn't do this until August, when you gave the bulk of the families time to be in, to actually register at the school if they move from one place to another.
I think this year we tried to do that, and we notified several parents in the spring.
That they were getting moved.
Yes.
No, but I meant if you don't allow new children to register in a school until later in the summer, so that the children who are living in that neighborhood have first priority, then I think that would be a little fairer. Also, I would like to see, have the child who was moved have the first right to return to that school, so that if they wanted to come back in a year, they could, and then they would be guaranteed the same rights for
think
their
that
siblings.
We do
Addresses
that.
that, yeah.
Okay. And I had one other thing. Oh, and I think the other thing about being careful about leaving some wiggle room is that in the end, it might cost us a little bit of money, but it's going to cost us money to bus these kids to all different schools in town. That's all.
We do leave some room. I mean,
Okay.
there's a little bit of room.
But when our schools are all full, there's not much room to leave.
No, I understand.
So,
I'll just add, Gail, I love neighborhood schools too. I just think most parents these days, they want
Right.
choice in their education. And my feeling is, and it is so messy, it is not fun to manage, but I feel like if we don't offer choice, there are more choices in our community than Ukiah Unified, and they might choose to not come to our district. So that's the benefit of offering choice to parents, because I think a lot of this generation of parents want choice. So, but I get it. It is so messy and complicated.
Yeah, no,
I
my daughter
agree.
got kicked out the 2 days before school started. I was at Calpella, and they filled up, and so we got kicked out, but we got to go back.
so, Trustee Arkin, do you have something else, or can we take a, just kind of? So, can I just have a yay or nay if you're comfortable with the wording in this new policy, starting with B?
Yes, I'm fine.
Megan?
I'm comfortable with it.
No.
I'm going to say no.
Yes.
And I say yes.
So we'll bring it back unless there are any minor changes. We'll bring it back to the next meeting.
Could we email any suggestions that we might have, or no? I
You mean
such
wording
as-
suggestions?
Yeah, the wording
or-
such as the right to return to that school before another child, or that if there's an opening in that school, that the child who was moved would have the first right to.
I hate to be all nitpicky, but I think the time for discussion is now, because she has to bring back a final thing on.
Right.
Well, that's what I'm asking.
Yes.
That's not necessarily true. These are policies that come up that we can put off for months and months and months if we want.
I'm just saying, if you have language changes, do you know what they are now? Is that what you're saying, you're just not sure?
I'm not no, I was just trying to think of some
So-
other ways to make this more palatable.
So Tyler, we have until December on this one because we start registering kids in January. And so I want to get this policy all cleaned up by January, so everyone is really clear on what it is and our sites are really clear. So you could do a third reading on it, technically.
We have till December. I was totally wrong. Thank you, I'm sorry.
I mean, you could take your time, but we'll be operating under a policy that,
One last comment, in the couple of parents that I talked to this spring who were being displaced, both of them expressed frustration about just not knowing what the rules were, like they would rather have been like not admitted at all, or, you know, so I just think there's an advantage of a family knowing with some certainty what's gonna happen, what their standing is.
Right.
That was reassuring to these
Yeah.
families.
Right.
Even if the policy was like, you're never allowed to come to this school, even that would have been helpful to them. It just needed some clarity, so I think it's important to have, whatever we decide,
Yeah.
it needs to be not like sort of loosey-goosey.
and we can attach the policy. I think it's written on the form. I'm not 100% sure though, so I'll check the form, but we can attach the policy to the form when parents fill out the form, so they have the whole policy.
The registration form.
Yes.
Okay. Trustee Mompera, would you like to add something to make it real specific that if a parent and child wants to return to their home school, that they have
I would think that would
priority?
do something to accommodate the other parents who just want to go to their home school. I mean, I think choice is
We
wonderful,
add
but
something to that effect?
I can add that, and we do that as a practice scale, so I'll just put it in writing in the policy.
And then I think we have to, there's one phrase that you would, here, under the, what is this? The Ukiah Unified Administrative Regulations, it says under enrollment priorities, no student residing within the school's attendance area shall be displaced by another student. I think you're gonna have to, if you want it to be really clear, I think that's not clear, because actually they can be, if we,
I talked
you see
to,
what I'm saying?
It's under the, yes, I see what you're saying. It's under the administrative regulations.
Some parent's gonna come in and read
Enrollment
that to you.
priorities, number 1. no student currently residing within a school's area shall be displaced by another student.
I'll get that clear.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Just so
I
you
did
don't-
ask legal counsel about that, and they
Oh.
said because of the second sentence. Anyway, I'll make sure it's super clear.
Okay. Okay. All right, so this was the first reading of this, so it will come up in November then, again. All right, we need to have a public hearing regarding the sufficiency and insufficiency of instructional materials. So Katie Summer, you're up, and I will open the public hearing.
Thank you. Every year, we have to have a public hearing on sufficiency of textbooks, and we are resolving that we are sufficient in our textbooks. All of our schools passed our Williams visits, and we've ordered, excuse me, I choked on a Smartie. And we have ordered, all the textbooks were ordered, and we were found in compliance for being sufficient, so we are passing our resolution number 6.
Okay.
No.
Yep.
So we need to vote on that?
Yes, you close the public hearing and then.
Okay. Okay, the public hearing is closed, and so we need a vote to approve the resolution, number 6.
I move that we approve resolution number 6.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, thank you, Kate. Right, our superintendent has already given her report.
Yes, I have.
Do we have any board members' reports? No? Okay. And so then we need a vote, a motion to approve the consent agenda, unless,
I move that we approve the consent agenda.
okay? Second?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, so now I think we're on to the planning process. And do we have any items that board members would like to bring up at future meetings? Okay, having none, do we have dates for agenda planning?
Tuesday, October 31st at
October 31st, Halloween. Do we come in costume?
Yes. Oh, yes, we'll have the prize for the best costume at that board agenda planning.
We know you'll win that.
As Halloween is one of the best holidays of all of them, I would love to come to agenda planning.
All right,
Bring your trick-or-treating basket, too.
Tyler,
I feel like I haven't done it in a very long time,
okay,
and I think I'm probably available.
okay, Megan,
Noon?
at
School is that
noon.
day, right? It's the next day?
Yes,
Yeah.
school is that day. No school the next day.
No school the next day?
No, it's a professional development day the next day,
So student of the month would be the following weekend?
probably.
Yeah.
And then Debbie, we need to schedule a special meeting for our expulsions. So can you maybe give us some
And
dates?
don't we have that meeting on the 30th?
Mhm.
Yes.
Yes,
We have
we
the
do.
facilities master plan workshop on the 30th.
That's in the evening.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Are you gonna do it before? The 30th?
We'd like to do expulsions as soon as possible.
And how long do we think we should allow?
2 hours.
2 hours, okay.
So it'd be 3 o'clock?
Can we do it 3 o'clock?
You probably can.
No.
What about you?
No.
3 o'clock for the agenda planning?
No.
No, that's at noon.
Special meeting for expulsions.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So are we talking about the 30th or the 31st?
We're gonna try to do them sooner than that.
Oh.
Debbie, I think, is trying to find a date. Carolyn will be gone, so.
Oh, that's right.
is a possibility, we're looking
19th?
19th, that's a Thursday.
Does that work for people?
19th.
19th?
What time?
People are shaking heads.
12
I can,
o'clock.
No.
Noon?
No.
4:30.
Do 4:30, Megan?
It doesn't work for you, sir?
It works.
Works for you.
Yeah, does it work for you?
I don't know why it wouldn't.
Okay, just making sure I'm not forgetting something like my own children's birthday or something.
That's a very big responsibility.
I think that'll work.
So
Oh, are you
4:30
gonna hear
on the
about that
19th.
later in your life?
Oh, my goodness. Okay,
That's
good.
great.
Okay,
Okay.
The 19th,
I'm sorry, some-
okay.
Oh, no. You will not know when it is.
And we need to send
what time is
out
it again? I was
4:30
laughing
again?
at Zoe,
4:30.
sorry.
4:30. We
Deb
need,
will send something out.
4:30 on the
Okay,
19th.
sure, Ann, so where, okay. Okay, so, with that, can we have a motion to adjourn?
That's next Thursday.
I so move.
oh my gosh.
It's next Thursday, right?
Yes.
We have a second?
I second that motion.
All in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.